Hi, today we're going to talk about self-watering systems. If you've been at a garden center, you may have found commercially available ones. I think they're referred to as city pickers, or there's another term where they are earth box. I've also seen one called an aquapot, is what this variety is. Basically, the components are, you've got a fill tube to actually water. You've got a container that is waterproof. That is the very important thing. It can't have any holes in the bottom. So basically, you've got the self-containing water. You'll have a container that is waterproof, has a screen, as well as a drainage area, as well as a reservoir. That's what I was trying to think of. A reservoir down at the bottom here, so that will hold the water. As you can see, it's about a quarter or a third of the depth of the pot. And so that just fits in. There's a screen that has perforations in it so that liquid can come up from the bottom. Also referred to as a sub-irrigation planter, hence watering from below. And commercially, I think these are about anywhere from $50 to hundreds of dollars, depending on how large you want. So those are the basic component systems. I'm going to give us a little quick hack of how you can use ordinary hardware material that you probably have around the house or can be found at a big box store to go ahead and create your own version of this concept. The first one, since I'm getting ready for the plant sale coming up in May, what we're going to want to do is, I've got trays and trays of seedlings started, so I can't keep them all watered every day. So to decrease my time watering spent, I go ahead and just use a regular old container. Again, you want to make sure it's watertight. I've taken 3/4 inch PVC tubes, and this is just acting as a lift, sort of that platform that we were talking about in the larger version. And then the only specialty item you might need to find is this grid. It's basically for fluorescent lights. It's a cover that you can find at the big box stores. You got to climb around in the lighting area. And I've cut it to the size of this so that I now have a platform. And so the top of that PVC is what this rests on, giving me a level surface. So the water is below at the top of that PVC pipe. And by the use of capillary action, we are actually utilizing some felt here as our wicking material. In the pot, it's going to be your soil medium. So what I've done is I've just folded over the edges so that they bend down into the well, and now I've got a surface that I can go ahead and, once I've added water to the top of the grid, my planter, it has holes on the bottom. Again, theory of capillary action. The wicking medium being the soil, the seedling mix, which is mostly peat or coir based. That rests on top, and then all I have to do is water from below. So I will water the bottom unit and not bother getting any diseases or waterborne soil diseases in my plant that way. So that's one method you can utilize this trick. A larger scale version is, this is a pot you can probably get at your local Costco or anywhere else. Again, you want to make sure it's watertight. If it's not watertight and you wanted to retrofit, you could use pond liner. As long as it's fish safe, it would be food grade safe for most people. And in lieu of the components that we were talking about with the commercial version, you would want to have drainage pipe. It comes in various sizes. It might also be called drainage tile. It's perforated. You can see there's little holes in it. Some are more rigid than others. This is a 4-inch diameter. I like this version because it's, I think this was 3-inch actually. This is a 4-inch diameter, and it's a flexi hose. So I can go ahead and bend it. Whereas with this one, it's great for doing a vertical box. I've also done 20-gallon planters that are just square boxes, you know, those totes that you can get at most big box stores. So optionally, you can buy this sleeve so it protects the sediment. Unnecessary cost. I haven't used it in any of mine previously, just an option if you want or were concerned. So the perforated holes acts as the grid that we were talking about before. So that's going to be the medium, or the way the capillary action works between the water, which we're going to put water into our pot, and it's going to be stored here in the drainage tile. And the wicking medium, in this instance, is going to be potting soil. And I want to assure you're not using garden soil, you're not using compost, you want to use something that's light and fluffy when it's dry. So most potting mix, yes, I'm making a mess here, is made of perlite, or I'm sorry, peat moss. As you can see, it's just fine from peat bogs. Coir is another acceptable alternative that's made out of coconut. I'm actually using blonde peat moss. It's a specialty. It's the higher grade quality of peat sphagnum. They're a bit longer particles, so they will hold and retain moisture longer. The other component, usually within a bag soilless potting mix, is going to be perlite. And as you can see, these are big chunks, and this is for your drainage. We know that peat, when it's wet, will hold on to water. The pores, it gives us airspace for the aeration of the roots in the plants in the water zone. And then as another amendment, I've just got some vermiculite here as well, which is going to also hold in the soil and moisture and retain any nutrients that you may be feeding your plants. So that's our soilless medium. The other components we would need is a feed tube. So again, my handy dandy 3/4 inch PVC pipe. I've given it a diagonal cut at the end, and I'll show you why that's important in a moment. So we've got I've done pre-staging here. We've got our pot. You can see it's just solid through. I've gone ahead and used some landscape fabric and just some gaffer's tape to tape off the ends. And I've made a rough circle of the diameter of the pot. So it just rests in the bottom there. And you can notice I've gone ahead and put a little slit, cut a hole in this portion. So now, let me get it assembled. What that means is I can use this as my feed tube of my water. And I insert that directly into my drainage pipe. So that gives me my water reservoir, right? So we've got, if I can hold this up for you, you can see we've got about a good 6 inches of space beneath there as our, why do I have a drainage as our reservoir. Thank you, that word I cannot think of today. So our reservoir is about 6 inches high once it's actually on the bottom there. And you could drill a drainage hole so that if it excess water, I didn't do it because this isn't my pot, but in figuring out what the height is of the drainage pipe, I measured about 4 inches up above, and I would go ahead and basically align that hole and give it so that if it's a 4-inch drainage pipe, I'm going to have about 3.5 inches up from the height of the drainage pipe to give myself an air gap. So excess moisture can overflow should we have a rainy day and I don't have to get out there. And that way you don't overwater and could get root rot. So the other thing you can do is, now that I've created the reservoir, I'm going to want to go ahead and mix about, 4 gallons of this peat moss, and then about 2 gallons each of the vermiculite and perlite. And I've already gone ahead and done that in my handy-dandy 5-gallon bucket here. It helps to have it moistened ahead of time, and you can see it's pretty light and fluffy when it's dry. I would moisten it ahead of time, and then what you're going to want to do as a wicking medium, I'm going to go ahead and just dump it right on top. And as you can see, it covers up my drainage pipe. So I'm going to want to make sure and have it wet, and that's going to act as the wicking medium, basically. So the water will seep through the drainage and sit in the bottom of the pot, and I will just go ahead and water it through this hole here. If you don't mind, if you find your hose is tricky to fill in there, you can always go ahead and touch a bottle, whether it's a gallon size or a soda pop bottle, cut off the base, and that way you have something to just go ahead and prop your hose in there so you don't have to stand there watering it. I've also seen others online who have gone ahead and used the spaghetti drip irrigation system and just inserted it directly into there, and there you've got your water automated with the rest of your drip irrigation. So you're going to say, Nick, why is there so little soil? Well, that's not all that you need, basically. That is just, again, our reservoir, and it is our capillary action. So now what I'm going to do is, to finish off our project, we just go ahead and take a 2-quart, 1.5 to 2 cubic foot bag of potting mix, again, soilless, so it has those components in it that are water absorbent, and I'll fill the rest of the pot with that. Give it a thorough watering through the feed tube to where the excess drains out. Oh, for the drain, if I did opt to have that, I would go ahead and drill a hole and then just take this, I believe it's half-inch diameter tube, no, quarter-inch diameter tube, and just poke that through the hole, and this way I have a spout to overflow for the water. This is a great concept. I've seen it used. It saves me time in watering. It's going to go ahead and allow you to water from beneath. I've gone with maybe a large indeterminate tomato in this pot. This is about a 22.5 gallon pot. About a third of it is our reservoir, and the 2/3 is our growing medium. So in terms of nutrition, I would want to go ahead and get a granular-based, whether it's organic or chemical fertilizer, and just sprinkle that in with the mix, and then I would go ahead and pot. I could go ahead and put in, if not a tomato, even a fig tree I've done, where instead of having to water every day in August in the heat that we get out here, maybe it's once every week at most. So again, it's not totally watering, it's self-watering, it's semi-watering, but it's a lot easier to manage and look and enjoy your garden rather than worrying about whether or not you remember to water. So scalable, perfectly scalable. I've seen it go from 5-gallon buckets, which are known as global buckets, if you want to do a search on the internet for these. There's also the possibility of doing them, like I say, I've done them in 30-gallon black totes that you could probably get a couple tomatoes in there, or you can even do them, and I regret having drilled holes in my galvanized troughs now that I have this technique, but instead of drilling holes in those troughs, you could just build a larger version of this with probably 6 or 8-inch diameter piping, and I could use pond liner now that I think about it to retrofit mine if I emptied out what's in there. So that's hopefully gives you a couple ideas on how to go about making your life easier this summer and having plants that mine their own water. Thank you very much.